live in this great land of America where we have freedoms, where we're protected by our armed forces and our local police departments and sheriff's office. We appreciate that and we cherish that, and want to thank thee for that blessing as we now convene this meeting and this opportunity to listen to different people share things in their heart that we'll understand and that we'll be able to do the right thing and do the fair thing. We pray for our chairman as she does the conducting of this meeting, that things will be smooth and that she'll be able to think clearly and understand. We say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Want to do the pledge as well?
Oh, we're going to do the pledge?
Yeah.
Oh, we got a pledge. Everybody stand. Please follow the pledge after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gordy, thank you. I appreciate you jumping in to do that. Paul wasn't here. Thanks, Bryson. Appreciate that. Okay, our first item of business, and I apologize for adding this on, but it was time was of the essence. We've been asked by USAC, which is the Utah State Association of County Councils and Commissions, which is a division of the Utah Association of Counties, to consider passing a resolution opposing President Biden's nomination of Tracy Stone Manning as the National Director of the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, not to allow any confusion there. And so that resolution should be in your packets, Council. And I included in that packet, I also put what's called the Merkley Letter. This letter was sent to the National Energy and Natural Resources Committee in Washington, D.C. By the officer who investigated Ms. Stone Manning originally for her involvement in placing pieces of metal in trees so that they would cause problems when they were trying to be cut down, and she absolutely was involved in that. And so I hope you had a chance to read that letter. This gentleman mentioned that during his investigation he received death threats and he quit because of it. So I believe what he says, because I don't see why he would want to come forward under those conditions unless he was deeply concerned and wanted to speak the truth. In addition to that, the resolution mentions Ms. Stone Manning's a recent tweet that she did. This was September 15, 2020. I looked up her tweet. It is there. She mentions an article done by her husband, Richard Manning, in Harper's in 2018. And in that article, he calls for the solution to houses in the interface is to let them burn. And he also says, quote, "There's a rude and satisfying justice in burning down the house of someone who builds in the forest." And this is a copy of that article. And she said, "Not a bad time to revisit this piece from my husband, Richard Manning, from 2 years ago. Clarion call." So those are some things to consider. I don't know what your feelings are on this, but we'll entertain any motion or discussion.
Madam Chairperson, I feel not up for discussion, but I feel very strongly also that we need to pass this resolution. It's not a motion yet, but I've also done a lot of research, and I've even received about 3 different emails from people that for us to vote against it. And I checked back into their links, and they are also linked into those eco-terrorist organizations that she was also affiliated with. And these are not people that we need in charge of, for multi-use lands that we need in this state. And I think it shows a lot of solidarity for the state, and also us all working together for us to support rural counties, as well as, all counties in this position. So therefore, I would move that we pass, or can we pass resolution? Mm-hmm. Okay, I move that we pass resolution 2021-17.
Second.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I can remember when this all came out years ago, and my family worked in the lumber industry. And when we started hearing about these kinds of things, it was very upsetting to us. I don't understand why someone would think it is okay. This is all from a personal point of view. It would be okay to do something like that and then almost be flippant about if somebody gets killed sawing down those trees. And so I totally agree with what Davis said. We need to pass this resolution.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chairperson?
Yes.
I've been down to the Kaibab Plateau and been out and done appraisal work, and where we've looked at trees and seen trees that still had the spikes put in them, and then talked to people down in Kanab that were at the lumber yards, and their stories of family members that were injured of exploding saws due to those trees. And so then they had to go to magnetic and metal detectors on every tree before it was cut down. They had to totally, it was just amazing what they had to go through because of practices, and not just for the trees, but several other things. So again, I encourage us to pass this.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to pass resolution 2021-17, a resolution opposing President Biden's nomination of Tracy Stone Manning as director of the BLM. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And we'll send this to both of our senators, and I have their contact information. Thank you. Okay, now for the moment we've all been waiting for. We'll move on to item number 3, our Cache County Attorney candidate interviews. And let me talk about how this will go. So you will, each candidate, let me start here, I apologize. Usually we go in what's called ballot order, but I thought I'd mix things up a bit and just, if you would write the names of our candidates on these papers. See, there's nothing else in here, and she has 3 papers. We'll just draw out the order for how this will go tonight. And so what will happen is we'll ask the 2 to be excused, and we figured you could probably go up and hang out in the county attorney's office because you can get in there and it's far enough away. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, and when the first person is done, we'll send them to get the next person and so forth. So that will be the process. We'll start with your statement, and Janine is timing, and 3 minutes. I told you guys 3 minutes, right? Okay, 3 minutes, and then we have some questions here. I'll pass these on. And these questions have been compiled by Barbara Tidwell and I based on things that people, some of the elected officials sent us. So we compiled 4 questions. I'll ask these 4 questions. If there's any follow-up questions from council, go ahead and ask at that time. And then if there's any additional questions at the end for that candidate, we can add those in as well if you desire. So, candidates, do you have any questions with those instructions? I want to make sure I told you everything. If so, raise your hand. Okay. This is awesome. I explain stuff to attorneys. Cool. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure everything.
Okay. Barbara, I'll have you draw them out and I'll hold it. This is for the first one. The first person that we'll interview is Dane Murray. Okay. Will we draw the second name, please? And the second will be Jake, and that would leave, the last one would be John Lukey. So Dane, if you will stay, and Jake and John, if you would please make your way to the county attorney's office, and we'll send Dane or someone else if we need to run and get you when it's your turn. So thank you.
They're being sequestered.
They're sequestered.
We have a soundproof booth.
I didn't know any like TV shows like to call, or I would have. And
Come on down.
yeah, come on now. I didn't know who was in charge of those shows, or I would have got a special booth with the headphones and everything. Okay, well, Dane, if you want to come on up, come to the mic, and Janine is right next to you, so she can tell you when it's 30 seconds, and then she'll let you know when your time is up.
Well, thank you to the council. I'm happy to be here today. My name is Dane Murray. For those of you that don't know me, I think a lot of you do know me in here. My family's in here. I've worked at the county attorney's office my whole career. I started in this office during my first year of law school, and I've worked there ever since. Currently, I'm assigned to the Violence Against Women Act prosecutions. So that includes felony child abuse, felony domestic violence, and all sex crimes involving women and children. That's something that I take extremely seriously. It's a big responsibility to be in that position in our office. That's the type of cases that that take the biggest toll on the victims and on the families. And I think that's prepared me well to be the county attorney. I wouldn't be standing up here, I wouldn't have put my name in the ring if I didn't think it was best for Cache County and for this office for me to be the county attorney. That's something that I've watched James Swink for the last 6 years as I've worked in the office. I understand the burden of being the county attorney. I understand the responsibility that comes with that, both to the people of the county who are victims of crime and to the rest of the citizens, of how we respond to civil liability that arises within the county, how we prevent the county from having to pay out civil damages to avoid those type of issues with litigation. That's something that I take very seriously. Coming from a criminal background, I know that's going to be a issue that I'm going to have to learn a lot about very quickly to be county attorney, but we have some great people in our civil department. The county council's been kind enough to give us another civil attorney. And I'm excited for the opportunity to grow our civil department and make sure that the county is avoiding liability, that the county is planning for the future as far as how are we going to grow smartly and not infringe on people's rights when we're preventing some of the things that we don't want to have happen when we're growing. We don't want to pass any ordinances. We don't want to do anything like that that's going to cause a lawsuit in the future. So that's something I take very seriously. I appreciate the time that the council's given me leading up to this, and I appreciate everyone that came out here, especially my family. And I'm happy and excited to answer these questions despite what I saw last week. I know you guys ask hard questions, but I think I'm ready.
All right. Thank you, Dane. Start. Barbara, do you want to start question number 1, and then we can just have you guys ask in succession. So Carl, you'll ask number 2, and Gordy number 3, and Dave Erickson number 4 when we get to that point. Okay.
All right, Dane, thanks for being here. I know
Thank you.
this is not a kind of a scary thing, but we don't bite that hard. So, okay, what is the role of the county attorney, and what is your vision and your goals for that office?
So starting with what I believe the first job of the county attorney is, and that's to be the chief law enforcement official for Cache County. When you look at the composition of our office, the county attorney supervises 9 criminal prosecutors, I believe 5 legal assistants whose primary duties are related to the criminal side. He's also over the Children's Justice Center and Victim Services. That's a lot of employees on the criminal side that the county attorney supervises. He also sets the policy for how Cache County is going to respond to crime? How are we going to prosecute crime? You've seen it in other counties in Utah. County attorney or the district attorney can have a huge impact on how law enforcement responds to crime. If they know that the prosecutor's office isn't going to take something seriously, if they're not going to prosecute something, that changes how officers weigh their responsibilities. Are we going to respond to this? I know Tara Warner in our office just recently, her daughter had her car burglarized and her backpack stolen down in Salt Lake County, and it was, I think, 6 hours before they even had an officer call them back. That's something I want to make sure never happens in Cache County. And then the second part of that is helping the county avoid civil liability, advising the council, advising all the elected officials, the other department heads. And the county attorney's office, the county attorney doesn't need to be the expert in everything. I think it's important to surround yourself with other people who are experts that you can rely on for their advice. You can rely on to advise the county attorney, but the county attorney is going to have the final say. So you have to be able to trust those people, but make those final decisions. There's employment issues that arise with different employees, whether that be an investigation into wrongdoing, a termination. There's road issues that arise. I know the Cache County Road Department maintains about 600 miles of paved and unpaved roads in the county. Those are issues that the county attorney's office has to deal with. So I think it's important to have someone who understands the criminal side really well, but is able to learn and adapt and be able to advise on the civil side and make those final decisions relying on the advice of those in their office that are experts in those fields.
Thank you.
Okay, Dane, question number 2. There are basically 2 parts of the county attorney's office: advising county officials and prosecuting criminals. Please explain how you would achieve balance in meeting both the criminal and civil duties. You alluded to that somewhat in the answers to your first question, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah. So like I said, there's 9 prosecutors in the office. As far as my philosophy as county attorney, I like to lead by example. So I would like to remain involved somewhat on the prosecution side. If there's a case that's important to the county, to the office, I want to be involved in trying that case. But I understand that as the county attorney, I can't devote as much time to prosecuting individual cases as I have as a line prosecutor. So that's something I'm going to have to, I want to remain involved in the criminal aspect, understand what's going on in our county as far as law enforcement goes and what prosecutions are happening in our office. I think it's important that the county attorney knows what's going on. But that being said, like I said earlier, you have to make those final calls on the civil aspects. I think it's really important. We have a chief civil deputy. I think it's important to meet with him regularly, to know what's going on in the office civilly. I think it's important for the county attorney to be at county council meetings, even if he's not the one advising the county council, to be here and understand what's happening in the county. So that's something that you have to divide your time. You have to pick and choose the different responsibilities within the office and how you're going to manage those. But I think that there needs to be a balance where you're still involved in the criminal side, but know what's going on the civil side. You know what's going on in Salt Lake and are able to go represent the county and advocate our positions at the legislature. And that's important on both the criminal side. James did a great job at doing that. He was down there and he made a big difference for law enforcement, for victims, and that's something that I think is important for the county attorney to continue doing. I also think it's important to watch what legislation is going to affect our county civilly and be involved in going down and speaking to that, talking to our legislators, making sure that we are getting our voice heard down in Salt Lake, because there's a lot of representatives from Salt Lake County, and if we're not down there on top of it, we end up with laws that hurt us up here because of what they want to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question number 3, Dane. What are your plans in your current position? You're now on the side of the criminal side. What are your plans if you are not selected county attorney?
I would continue working my caseload. I think those cases are extremely important. I very much enjoy working those cases. I get to work closely with victims. I get to work with our victim advocates and with law enforcement officers. It's something I really enjoy. It's very rewarding. I can tell you today I had a sentencing over in the district court on probably the worst child abuse case I've ever prosecuted. Went for over an hour. We had the victim's mother, who was also a victim of domestic violence, and 4 children who these injuries were horrific. I met with them at the CJC last week, got them prepared to be up in front of a judge and face their father, who had beat them horribly over years and years and years. And today they all came, I stood in court with them as they addressed their father and the judge, and the judge followed the state's recommendation and sent this man to prison. That's something that is extremely rewarding to me, and I can't see myself walking away from being a prosecutor. That's what I enjoy doing. I want to be able to help victims, whether it's as county attorney or as it's the Violence Against Women Act prosecutor. That's something that's extremely important to me.
Very good. What are your thoughts on Utah's criminal justice reform, known as Justice Reinvestment Initiative, or JRI?
So that's something our office has been fighting since its very beginning. Something I see every single day, and it's when you talk about criminal justice reform, the JRI, that's how I refer to it. There was the JRI bill, which reclassified a whole bunch of crimes, but that only encompasses a small little bit of what this justice reform has been. There's been changes to the sentencing matrices and sentencing guidelines. There's been changes to the Board of Pardons and how they're releasing people. There's been changes to APMP and how they respond as far as collecting restitution for victims, as far as collecting fines and fees. And I think it's very important that we go and fight those battles and try to roll those back. We've seen a huge increase in crime across the country. It's present here in Cache Valley and in Utah too. And it's important that we're down there, we're taking that fight to the legislature, we're taking that fight to really, on some of these changes, they were made by our past governor. They were changes that through his appointments, and I think it's important to point that out. I can tell you today on this case that I did, it's a perfect example. For a second-degree felony conviction for child abuse, it was because he didn't have a criminal history before this happened. What our sentencing matrix said was presumptive probation for 18 months with a jail guideline of 0 to 90 days. That's what we were up against on second-degree felony child abuse. That's unacceptable to me. That's something that I think we need to be putting pressure on the legislature to change those sentencing guidelines, especially on persons crimes, because what the matrix is saying and what APMP is being told to recommend doesn't align with justice, in my opinion. And luckily on this case, APMP understood how horrific this was, and they deviated and made that recommendation that the state could use in our recommendation. That gave it strength. But I see it all the time where the recommendation based on the sentencing matrix isn't justice. I think it's important that us as a county, we do what we can both legislatively and just in our office through our office policies. We're going to take even the smallest crime seriously. We're going to prosecute those crimes because it's important to let people know that in Cache County, we take that seriously. We're not going to let, just because it's a theft of a backpack, we're not going to let that go. We're going to hold you accountable. We're going to seek restitution for victims to make them whole. We're going to seek fines because, you know what, when someone breaks the law, whether it's a possession of meth or something else, there's a societal cost to that. There's the cost of investigating it. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks, Dane. Council, do you have any other questions?
I've got one I'd like to just throw out there.
Please, go ahead.
Is the county attorney's office, or the county attorney, is a leadership and management role also. And it's not that office, I hate to say, is not perfect. You may think you guys are, but you're really not. But, and I bring that up for the mere fact, I want to know what changes and fixes would you make in that office as the leader and manager of that office?
So right off the bat, I think there needs to be a civil division. We have a chief civil deputy. We've kind of left him out there. We're going to have 2 attorneys now. I think there needs to be a clear vision of, are we just going to respond to issues that arise, or are we going to prevent those before they arise? So right off the bat, I would first get another civil attorney hired and then sit down with them and say, okay, I need you to go, we're going to have a new general plan. I know they're working on that. Let's go through that. Let's identify some of those issues that are going to arise in the future and say, how are we as an office going to help achieve the goals of this general plan? Because there are going to be civil issues that arise. We need to be looking into the future. So that's one thing I would, is have a better vision for how we're going to respond to things civilly. Secondly, I think it's important for leadership to be present in the office, available. And I know that's something James was down in Salt Lake a lot. He was doing great work for the county, but that's one complaint that I've heard as I've gone through this process is, am I going to be able to get a hold of you? That's going to be something I make a priority, that I'm in the office. There's going to be someone here. I'm going to be available. I'm going to set the example. I'll be in court when someone needs me to be in court. I'll be available for elected officials, for law enforcement when they need someone there. And I think that leading by example, if your leader's in the office, there's an expectation that everyone else is in the office working. I think that's important. That's something that I've noticed. I don't want to throw colleagues under the bus or anything, but I think it's important that we're all in the office working. We do the people's work, and I think we should be in the office working.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a question.
Please, go ahead. Thank you.
Dane, as you see the future, supposing you were appointed, and it's a good possibility you could be appointed the county attorney, are you willing to change your thoughts on the civil side in the event that it has been suffering for quite a few years? The criminal side, I think, has been fairly, it's always understaffed, but it's been taken care of much better than the civil side. Would you be willing to take a large portion of your time and help the civil side of it?
Yeah, absolutely. If that, I think, as I'm saying, when we get another civil attorney, hopefully very soon, I want to divide that work, because I think there's probably work that needs to be done that I know John is always working. So that's something that I'm willing to put aside some of that criminal aspect of it, learn the civil side, do whatever work needs to be done. I don't want work not being done by our office. If there's work that needs to be done, it'll get done, and if I'm the one that's required to do it, I'll do it. At the end of the day, the buck stops with the county attorney. If I'm not willing to go do that work, how can I ask my deputy county attorneys, how can I make them be responsible for that if I'm not willing to pitch in and do more than my share? That's.
I guess a follow-up question is I see that you've got a lot of passion for the criminal side, and I don't see a lot of passion for the civil side. The civil side is the side that's really hurting in the county. And I'm just hoping that if you were selected, that you would develop the same passion for the civil side. I mean, the county's only done on the civil side the things that they had to, that they were forced into doing, as far as really going out and doing some interesting offensive work. It's been zero.
And I'll tell you, I am passionate about the criminal side. That's what I know. I enjoy helping people. But when you look at the civil side, that's helping people too. Once I'm exposed to that and I see what needs to be done, I can assure you that I'll throw myself into that just as I'd throw myself into any criminal case. That's important work. It affects the daily life of every citizen of the county when we're talking about some of those civil issues. That's something that affects quality of life here. I take that seriously as a public servant, that if it's going to help people's lives, I'll work to get it done.
Thank you.
Any further questions, council?
I have a question. So as you look at from the county, and we were to say what issue, and I guess you can change that to what problems do we as a county have, and in the law side, and I will also bring law enforcement to that, and civil side, how would you address that, and how would you help the county understand that going forward?
So personally, my biggest concern for the county going forward is how do we manage growth? And that affects both the law enforcement side and the civil side. We're going to probably double our population over the next 30 years in Cache County. I've seen the projections. That's what they're projecting. So I think it's important from the county attorney's perspective is we're looking forward. How are we going to handle that as a county? How are we going to manage water, manage roads, manage everything? Our sheriff's office, if we grow that much, we're going to have to expand the number of deputies to make sure we're keeping the people safe, having the same amount of deputies on the road proportionate to the population so our response times aren't falling. We're going to have to work with all of the cities that are growing. I live in Hiram and I see all the building, the townhomes and things going in there. At some point, the contract of the sheriff's office for the number of deputies, it's not going to be enough to answer the calls in Hiram. That's something that is going to affect the law enforcement side. You look at our water use. Imagine in 30 years we're in a drought like this with double the population. That's something that the county, as the attorney's office, we need to look at some of those water right issues. We need to be willing to go fight when the Wasatch Front comes for water that previously has been allocated to us. I can imagine that happening. I think there's going to be legal fights involved with that. So I think it's important, as the county attorney's office, we project into the future what issues are going to arise and what can we do now to prevent issues in the future, both from the criminal side, making sure we're ready to tackle more crime, and from the growth and development side, that we're looking at what civil issues could arise and coming up with some type of legal plan to address those.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, did you have a question?
No questions.
Okay. Anyone else?
No?
Okay. Dane, thank you very much.
Okay.
Would you mind going and getting Jake?
Yes.
Him to come
Thank
down?
you.
Thank you.
Appropriate. After standing up there, everyone needs a pat on the back.
Yep, they do. You're right.
Pretty brave to do it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jacob Gordon. I would love the opportunity to serve as the county attorney because I believe I have the experience, leadership abilities, and judgment to protect the county from liability and provide safety for Cache County residents. I'm a 12-year veteran of the office starting in 2009. I've served in every criminal court in which our office prosecutes. I started in the juvenile court and was a member of the Juvenile Mental Health Court Committee. I moved to the adult court, where in addition to my other duties, I was the drug court prosecutor. After that, I took on the violence against women cases, which included all the felony domestic violence, felony child abuse, felony sexual assault. From there, I moved to the Logan City Justice Court, handling misdemeanors and traffic offenses. And finally, I'm in adult court, where I'm back to handling felonies. Also, for the past 6 years, I've been involved with a program at Utah State University, providing legal advice to students, usually on civil matters, such as contracts, employment, landlord-tenant disputes, and divorce and custody issues. I'm a native of Cache County. Much of mine and my wife's family live here in the Valley. I'm married and have 4 kids, all teenagers. My baby is in middle school. I have 2 actively involved high schoolers, and my oldest is serving as a missionary in Paraguay. I'm a graduate of Utah State University with a bachelor's degree in both political science and sociology, and a master's degree in political science. My wife is also an Aggie. She got her bachelor's at Utah State. My law degree is from Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. I've served as a state delegate for my precinct on behalf of the Republican Party and currently serve as a county delegate. I represented our office on a statewide committee charged with finding and transitioning prosecutors' offices to a more efficient and robust digital case management software system. Our office became a leader in that endeavor, and that set a course for the rest of the state in digital case management. For the past 2 years, I've served on the board of the Friends of the Children's Justice Center, where I currently serve as the secretary. If selected as the county attorney, my priorities would include setting up a county justice court. I know,
30 seconds.
thank you. I know that was attempted some years ago, but I think the timing is right at this point to try again, where so many justice courts in the Valley are closing their doors because of cost. I'd also like to see more transparency from our office, giving the public more information and statistics related to what we do, the number of cases we handle, and the number of civil cases in which the county is involved. Through my experience, I have gained the ability to lead and the judgment necessary to serve as the Cache County Attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 4 questions and probably a couple others from council, but we'll start with you, Barbara. You'll read number 1 and on down the line.
All right, Jake, thanks for being here. Appreciate
you.
your time. Okay, what is the role of the county attorney, and what is your vision and your goal for that office?
Well, the role of the county attorney, a county attorney in any district is, or in any county, is to be the top law enforcement official for that jurisdiction, to advise police agencies and other law enforcement agencies about criminal prosecution, and on the civil side, to protect the county from liability and to make sure that everything in the county business is being done according to the law and in a manner that will protect the county from any kind of lawsuits. My vision for the county attorney's office is to see that change is done in the best way possible, to move our prosecution services forward and to move the business of the county forward and provide legal advice to you guys and to other departments in the county so that those department heads and other employees can make the best decisions possible with the information that we have.
Thank you. Carl?
Okay, number 2, and again, you've covered this a little bit already, this question, but I ask you to give some perhaps further enlightenment. There are basically 2 parts to the county attorney's office: advising county officials and prosecuting criminals. Mm-hmm. Explain how you would achieve the balance needed in meeting both of the criminal and civil duties.
Well, as far as criminal duties, I would rely heavily on our prosecutors. We have a great group of prosecutors who know what they're doing, who are reasonable in their judgment, and I would allow them space to do their work and provide advice and counsel to them when they need it. Would want to create an atmosphere where we can roundtable cases so that we can find the best solution possible to any kind of criminal violation. On the civil side, again, would rely heavily on our civil attorneys to do their work and to advise me on what actions we should take as a county. I don't have as much experience in that. However, I would do as I have done in the criminal realm, and that is when I have questions, I go to the people that know, and I ask them their advice, and then I throw myself into research and try to learn as much as I can about any given subject so that I can become not only knowledgeable but well-versed in that subject so that I can provide advice to our county departments that need it so that they can make the best decisions possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question number 3, Jake. What are your plans in your current position if you are not selected as the county attorney?
I will keep prosecuting. At this time, I'm assigned in front of Judge Maynard with the general felony calendar, and so I would continue in those duties. I enjoy prosecuting. It's a worthy pursuit. It's challenging. It's ever-changing, and I would continue to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, Jacob, what are your thoughts on Utah's criminal justice reform, known as the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, or JRI?
My thoughts on JRI are complex. We should never be satisfied with the status quo. The criminal justice system is made up of people, and as people, we are inherently flawed, which means we should always be striving to be better. JRI is a worthy pursuit. I think there were some parts of it that could have been done better. I don't agree with all of it. I agree with the goal of making the criminal justice system better, but I don't agree with everything that JRI did. I would want to see some things changed, and I'd want to see some things improved.
Jake, can you expound on a little bit there on what parts you agreed with and what parts you would want to change on JRI?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with the emphasis put on rehabilitation and counseling. I think that's a great thing. When I was serving in the drug court, that was the single most effective tool we had to rehabilitate drug addicts and to help them lead better lives. It's really a brilliant program. JRI, in some ways, threw a wrench in that. It lowered the severity of drug charges, which meant that we could not persuade as many people to participate in it. If the option was, well, you can spend 30 days in jail or you can spend 2 years in this program that will eventually help you get better, in the mind of a person who's in active addiction, 30 days doesn't seem like that much, and 2 years seems like a really long time. And so it hampered our efforts to really help people. Overcoming addiction is a long process. It's not something that is done overnight, and getting people to buy in and have that motivation to change their lives was hard after JRI was enacted. But I do like the emphasis put on rehabilitation and getting people to make better choices. It's not a solution to just put people in jail or prison.
Thank you. Council, do you have any other questions? Dave?
Yeah, I do. I'd like, now, the county attorney's office is a leadership and management role. You know, you're over a lot of people and you're a lot of organizing and such. What changes and or fixes would you make in that office to make it better?
I love James Swink. He was a great guy, and he was a great boss. I would do some things differently. I would make it a point to be in my office as much as possible and conduct my business from there. I would make sure that all the employees in the office knew that my door was always open, and if they had questions or concerns or things they wanted to run by me, that I would be available to them. I'd be available to the other departments in the county for when they had questions. They would know where to find me. I know being out of the office is sometimes inevitable, but my goal would be to be there as much as possible, because I think that's the way that the best interests of the residents of Cache County are advanced. That's what I would change.
Anyone else?
Yeah. I'm going to ask the same question that I asked before, and that is, what issues, and an issue could be a problem, that face the county and the attorney's office in the county? What are they, and how would you address them and help the county understand what we've got to do go forward to correct those or help those?
Well, as I mentioned in my opening, I would love to see the creation of a county justice court. So many of the justice courts are folding because of cost. I think it would streamline the process to consolidate it all in one place. There will only be one place that people would have to go to resolve any kind of citation or other misdemeanor offense. And that really is, I mean, efficiency, that would be the goal, is to make everything more efficient so that we are putting every tax dollar to its best use and stretching it just as far as it would go. That would be one thing that I would do. Also, as I mentioned again, transparency. I'd love to provide more information to Cache County residents about what we do in our office and the number of cases that we handle, the number of disputes that we're facing, so that residents will have a more complete picture of what our office does, what it doesn't do, and how we best serve them as residents of the county.
Thank you.
Jake, just as a follow-up on that, I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with the difference between a justice court and the district court. Can you briefly describe that so that they can understand what your vision is about?
Sure. The district court is just across the street here, big gray building. It's the court of general jurisdiction. So the district judges will take any case that is an A misdemeanor and above, or in other words, a felony, and then they take all the B and C misdemeanors, but only from the unincorporated areas of the county where there is no justice court set up. If there is a justice court set up in that jurisdiction, then the B and C misdemeanors and the traffic offenses will go to that justice court. So there's a division of jurisdiction there that the justice courts and the district court share.
Thank you. Gordy, did you have a question? No? Anyone else?
Maybe just to expand on that a little bit, I'm
Sure.
getting some enlightenment here. But you said many of the justice courts are folding, and which then those offenses have to be handled by the district court.
That's correct.
So I think Logan has a justice court, right?
Correct.
And Smithfield. And does Hiram still have theirs, or did that one fold?
Hiram is in the process of closing their justice court.
And are those the only two then that would be left, would be Smithfield and Logan?
North Logan.
Smithfield, I believe, is disbanding theirs as well, and they're transferring to the district court. Providence still has one. Nibley combined with Hiram, which is, again, that's going to come to the district court. Clarkson, they folded theirs several years ago.
I think Wellsville still has it.
Wellsville still has theirs for now, yeah, they do.
Hyde Park still has theirs, I think.
What's that?
Hyde Park.
Oh,
and North
yes,
Logan.
North Park, yeah, they still do.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciated that. And will you run and get John with you for us?
I will,
Shut
thank
it
you.
down? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, John. Okay. Thank you. Go Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Since coming to the county, I've learned that the scope of work done by the county attorney's office is broader than I first realized. It's part of why I love my job here, and it's also why I've come to believe that the attorney's office in the county would best be served by a county attorney whose life and legal experience best matches the scope of the office. And for that reason, I want to share with you my background, maybe more than you already know. I was born and raised here in Cache Valley, graduated from Skyview High School. For Gordy's sake, I tell you that I worked at a dairy farm in my teen years, milking cows and hauling hay and moving pipe. Worked on a grounds crew at Utah State and was a night watchman down at Willow Park Zoo. Served a mission in Japan and then earned a degree here at Utah State University. Along the way, helped form a singing group called Voicemail. After Utah State, I went to law school at BYU. While in law school, I worked at the Attorney General's office in the Criminal Appeals Division, working to keep felons behind bars. After law school, I clerked for Judge Gregory K. Orm of the Utah Court of Appeals. Initially, it was to be a one-year clerkship. After he read the first legal opinion that I prepared for him, he complimented my work and asked me to clerk for 2 years, which I did. I then clerked for Justice Richard C. Howe of the Utah Supreme Court and Judge Russell W. Bench of the Court of Appeals. While clerking, I met my wife, Valerie, in Salt Lake City. She was working there as well. Valerie's French, and we have 3 children. After clerking, I worked at the law firm Suter Axland in Salt Lake City. We did a general litigation practice. I took case to trial in federal district court in Salt Lake, prosecuted appeals in the federal 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. In 2006, our family moved to South Carolina, where I joined the full-time faculty at the University of South Carolina Law School. On the side, I continued to do some legal work and occasionally also taught at the Department of Justice's National Advocacy Center. In 2014, we moved back here and I joined the firm Peck, Hadfield, Baxter & Moore here in Logan. Again, a general litigation practice. I've tried cases here across the street in state district court, appeared in juvenile court, done appeals in the Utah Court of Appeals and Supreme Court, and again at the 10th Circuit. About 2 years ago, James asked me to come and be his chief civil deputy. I've loved the job. I think I have something to offer as county attorney, although the opportunity was unexpected, and I look forward to talking to you about that position.
Thank you, John. We have 4 questions, and we might have a couple follow-up questions. So Barbara, if you'll start with the questions.
John, thank you for being here. Thanks for your time. Okay, my question is, what is the role of the county attorney, and what is your vision and your goals for that office?
The role of the county attorney, by statute, there's 2 primary roles. One is to prosecute crime in the county. The other is to represent the county in civil litigation and in civil matters and assist the council and other departments and offices in the county. My vision in terms of the prosecutorial role is to largely stay the course that's already been set. James Swink talked to me a number of times about his theory that he called the broken windows theory, which is that if you prosecute the low-level crimes, the broken windows, which in our county may be the DUIs and the drug possession offenses, if you consistently prosecute those, then you reduce the number of larger crimes. I'd subscribe to that same theory. We have a good prosecutorial team. James has had a fine chief deputy in Tony Baird. I would lean on Tony and that team and not come into the office to make any immediate or drastic changes on how we prosecute, because I believe that things are going well. I would emphasize our need to communicate well with law enforcement, especially on significant cases as we make charging decisions or are negotiating settlements, that we'd want to be communicating with law enforcement. And as I get into office, there may be things that we would change, but would not come in to turn over things that are already working. On the civil side, as you know, there are things to change and do more of. We have had one chief civil deputy, and Tony also has handled civil matters. But our ability to do more than address issues as they arise has been difficult. And we appreciate your funding an additional civil attorney position, with having another civil attorney that will be coming on, and we plan to begin those interviews here shortly. There are 4 things that I'd like us to be more proactive on the civil side. Those include going all the way through the county code, making sure that it's up to date. I think that you're aware of some things we've found of late that are just outdated, and we need to go through that, make sure we're up to date, and then have procedures in place that every year as the legislative session ends, that we look at what's happened and update our code. We need to address road issues. Didn't realize we had a timer on these.
Timer on these two.
Sorry, I'm long-winded. I'll be very brief. We need to address road issues in the county, both in the mountain areas and on the valley floor. We review a lot of contracts in the attorney's office. I'd like to see us draft more of our own contracts and have the other party review ours.
Okay. Thank you,
And
John.
do some training as well.
Thank you. You might get a little extra time on this question because it's similar to what you've been talking about. But Carl, if you go ahead and.
Yeah, the next question, John, really ties in with the first question. There are basically, as you pointed out, 2 parts of the county attorney's office: to advise the county officials and to prosecute criminals. Explain how you would achieve balance in meeting both the criminal and civil duties.
Yeah, that is kind of a follow-on. And to go into a little more detail then on the balance, you know that I am not a stranger to criminal law, having worked in criminal appeals, having clerked for judges who resolve those cases, and I have trial experience. I don't have the experience of trying criminal cases myself, but have the skill sets to do that, and would want to learn from our prosecutors and from the chief deputy, and largely lean on the team. We have 9 attorneys there doing prosecuting work. We've had 1.5 to 2 attorneys doing civil work. So I would spend, I don't know if I put it in percentages, 35, 40% of my time wanting to learn the ropes and become thoroughly invested and involved in our prosecution work. But the bulk of what I would bring and the time that I would spend is as a working civil attorney and overseeing the civil matters at the county. Maybe 60, 65% of my time is what I would envision. And that we would, with a more, if I became county attorney, we'd need to have a new chief civil deputy, and you've approved another civil deputy. We'd have 3 of us to be not only reactive but proactive in the ways that I was talking about, which also I was going to say would include doing some training. For example, Nolan mentioned to me after a planning commission joint meeting with you and the planning commission recently that he learned some new things about zoning and planning that he hadn't known in his years on the planning commission. And that's not a ding on Nolan, that's an invitation to the county attorney's office to perhaps do some training on legal issues with different parts of the county.
Thank you.
John, number 3. You're doing pretty good.
I hope so.
What are your plans in your current position
Uh-huh.
if you are not a selected county attorney?
I would shift that 40% of criminal work, and I'd remain as the chief civil deputy. We'd have one new civil attorney come on, and I would hope to do our best to achieve those same goals that I've talked about on the civil side of things already. I would support Dane or Jake. We've had opportunities to visit. One of the great things about our office is the collegiality and goodwill in our office, where you don't really see egos involved, but everybody jumping in and doing their part. I'd want to continue just doing my part.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts on Utah's criminal justice reform, known as Justice Reinvestment Initiative, or JRI?
I'm going to speak broadly initially here. When Valerie and I decided to move back to Utah, I interviewed at the Attorney General's office in criminal appeals where I'd worked as a student. The work of that office is to keep felons behind bars and death row inmates on death row. I also interviewed here at Peck Hadfield. We decided that if we were going to move to Utah, we wanted to be in Cache Valley. And I told the Attorney General's office that although I'd been interviewed and things looked promising, that I was going to Cache Valley. That's to say that if I had pursued my other hoped for job, I'd be doing criminal appeals, doing that work. I believe in the criminal justice system and the important work that our law enforcement officers do and that our prosecutors do. As you look at the system, there are ways that there could be reforms, and I'll mention one. I think I've had experience working with a family where a son with some mental health issues one day opened fire in the home toward the father. Luckily, that didn't result in injury, but in working with that family, we had difficulty finding a mental health facility that would keep him for more than about 3 nights, and then wanted to send him home to meet with a therapist the next week, but be at home with the folks he'd tried to shoot. Sometimes our criminal justice system, because of shortcomings in our mental health system, our criminal justice system has to deal with mental health issues more than I think than they really are equipped to or designed to. If there are parts of justice reform that involve law enforcement doing less mental health work and there being others who are able to step in and help with that, those are the kinds of things that I don't have specifics for you, but I think that reforms could be appropriate. Reforms that result in folks who drink and drive and injure or kill people being immediately out on bail, those aren't parts of JRI that I'd agree with. Frankly, part of that 40% of the time on the criminal side of things would be me coming up to speed more on JRI and other criminal issues, and I might have more specifics for you. But I hope in broad strokes you can see where I might head on those specifics as I get into them.
Thanks, John. Dave, I remember you probably have another question that you want to ask.
I do.
Go ahead.
The county attorney's office and the county attorney specifically is a leadership and management role.
Yeah.
You know, they're the one that's to set the tone and so forth. What changes and or fixes would you make in that office if you were the new county attorney?
I have a couple of thoughts that I'll give you, but first thing that I intend to do would be to meet with and visit with each of our attorneys and the rest of our staff, including our victim advocates, to learn what changes and fixes they might see. That before embarking on a specific agenda, I'd want to get the full view. From where I sit now, some things that I would like to do are to have, on the civil side, more regular meetings and coordination between the county attorney and the attorneys who work the civil matters. So that, again, we aren't only responding as issues come up, but having a game plan and working systematically on issues. On the criminal side of things, I don't see a need for a lot of change. What I do see is that we have James Swink, who's left the office, Barbara Lockmar, who's going to be retiring soon, and we have two new prosecuting attorneys in the office. And one is fresh out of law school. The other has some years of experience, but is fairly new now to prosecuting. I'd want to make sure that we have mentoring going on between our seasoned attorneys and good training for those new attorneys coming in, because we are at a transition time and an opportunity to make sure we're all trained, make sure there's a continuation of the collegiality and cohesiveness. So I might meet a little more as groups than we have to ensure training and that we work together well.
Anyone else, Nolan?
Yeah. What issues or could be problems face the county as well as the attorney's office in Cache County? And how do you see those, or what are they, and how would you address them and help the county citizens and the attorney's office in meeting and addressing those?
Is this still a 2-minute answer? Oh, 3.
Because I'm on the north, we'll give you 4 minutes. Can't say that, so.
You're aware, and we've, as a county, been working together on some issues in the recorder's office. I've been pleased to be part of discussions on that, both in council meeting and in other meetings. I would hope to continue to help facilitate those kinds of discussions in that situation specifically, and in other areas where the county attorney's office can fill the attorney role of counselor at law and sometimes mediator to help there be good communication in the county, in the different offices, and addressing problems. As I mentioned, on the civil side, we have some road issues. There's enough growth in the valley that we need to do some forward planning and thinking on road issues. And our development services office is working on the general plan. And it's not only the attorney's office that deals with that, we just deal with the legal issues with roads. But working together with Public Works, Development Services, I think we need to determine in particular the roads on the valley floor that the county claims as county roads simply because of use over time, and determine which of those roads we really have that evidence of use over time, and of those, which ones we want to pursue and maybe even formalize county ownership. The same goes for roads in the mountains. We have some roads in forest land that the county believes are county roads. We have roads on private land in the mountain areas of the county that the attorney's office, and as I understand, the county believes are county roads, and yet the Forest Service and some landowners don't necessarily agree with us. For forward planning, we need to resolve some of those issues. Are we up to 3 minutes, or we got a little time?
30 seconds. I'd like to ask a question, Madam Chair.
Oh, please, go ahead.
John, you just mentioned quite a little bit about roads and rural roads, and as you foresee the future, will we have enough civil attorneys to go out and take care of those road needs and those challenges? Because we haven't even come close to having the manpower that we needed to do something like that. Supposing you become the county attorney, you get another civil attorney. I'm thinking that we still need another one on top of that to get forth and do some of these things. What's your thoughts on, the civil side even getting a little larger than what's been talked about here today?
When James came to you to ask for another civil attorney, he and I pulled the state, the county attorney's offices in the state that were the size of our county and larger, and then looked at how many civil attorneys they had in those offices, and then divided that by the population, or the population by civil attorneys. As you look at counties our size and just lower, we don't have as many civil attorneys as I don't think any other of those counties on a attorney per population basis. If I become county attorney again, I'd intend to be behind the desk working as a civil attorney. We'd have a new chief civil attorney who'd be full-time and another full-time civil. With that, I think we can make some real headway. If our road issues lead us to litigation, as we've done in the past, we may contract out the litigation work itself, but we'd need to talk about that. Over time, although you're the ones that would need to help us with the budget part, yes, I think that when you see a Weber County Attorney's office that has 3 or 4 civil attorneys besides the county attorney, I think over time, yes, we'll need to go that direction. If we go with a new chief civil deputy and another civil attorney, and I can continue to work in that role, I think we can make some real headway just at that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, John, thank you. And I want to apologize. I remember now that I had said a 2-minute closing, and I totally forgot to. I was so focused on let's make sure we go get the other candidates that I forgot to offer that or to the other 2 candidates. So we'll forgo that. But if you would be so kind to go and ask them to come back down, that would be good. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Are you against chocolate?
Dark chocolate and caramel chocolate, yes. Pretty picky on chocolate.
Not me, I'll eat it up.
You can just have a seat. Before we adjourned, I just wanted, on behalf of the council, to thank you for your willingness to serve in this position and for throwing your hat in the ring. It's quite a thing to be in the spotlight like that and to have these questions coming at you that you don't know what they are. And sometimes I've heard we're kind of scary. I hope we're not too scary, but thank you, gentlemen. So impressed with each of you, and just really glad that we have all of you working in the county attorney's office. I mean, we have some stellar people there, and really appreciate all that each of you do. You're amazing. I wanted to let you know that we will make a decision at our meeting next Tuesday, August 10th, in our regular meeting. That will be by a regular vote. We can't vote in secret. We'll have to have someone make a motion, and we'll vote on who to select. And then I know it can be hard because you have your families and stuff, so instead of having the swearing in of whomever we select right after that, we decided to do that the next day, August 11th, Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. And I've asked Judge Cannell if he would do the honors, and he's agreed. And we'll have some refreshments. We can have a little bit of a reception there too. So, and your families are invited to come to that. So. Again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to get to know better each of you and all that you do. Thank you. Give them a round of applause.
Madam Chair, would it be inappropriate, because behind each one of these gentlemen and these accomplished attorneys, they always have a spouse and they always have a family. Would it be inappropriate to ask them to introduce their families. I would like to,
I
would like to see who they are.
I think that would be in order.
I've been looking at their faces and looking at the crowd, and I can't really decide who goes to who.
I want to know if they'll claim them.
Yes, I think
I'm
that's
talking
in
about the
order.
family claiming the family.
Yes, Jacob, why don't we start with you?
This is my wife, Holly. My kids are off doing kid things. I was on for share.
Heidi, nice to have you here. Thank you. John?
Thank you. My wife Valerie is here. And next to her is our son Adrian. And next to him is our daughter Elodie. And if I might, in front of them are my parents, David Luthi and Karen Luthi, my dad's sister, Linda, and her husband Lynn. I'm glad to have family support here tonight.
Thank you for being here.
Here on the end is my brother-in-law, Kate Goddard, and his wife, Abby. This is my wife, Maddie. My brother-in-law, Will Hansen, and his wife, my little sister, Chrissy. Then my parents, Debbie Murray and Gil Murray.
Thank you for being here. It's so great to have families here and have that support. So thank you, Gordy, for thinking of that. That was well in order. Thank you.
We appreciate you families, and especially you wives that put up with these guys and all the things that they have to do. So thank you goes to you as well.
Okay, seeing no further business, we will be adjourned. Thank you.
Well, this process